NC pork. Good for the plate, great for the state.
Covering the bold North State. The players. The coaches. The legends. The fans. The most trusted sports journalist in North Carolina. This is the David Glenn Show on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Welcome back into the David Glenn Show here on the North Carolina Sports Network. I'm Mike Waddell. He's David Glenn, and we're talking bold North State sports right here in the month of June. And David, before we dive into the Tar Heels and Oklahoma at the College World Series in Omaha, hey, what a weekend for the bold North State with the Canes winning the franchise's second Stanley Cup. The parade is coming up Saturday in Raleigh, and now the Tar Heels are playing for a national baseball championship, which is not really a regular occurring thing here in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
No, you and I love covering North Carolina sports here on the North Carolina Sports Network for a lot of different reasons, and we have fun regardless of the results to a degree. But isn't it fair to say, in the state that you were born and raised in, that we have even more fun when we're kind of the center of the sports universe? And you and I are old enough to remember roughly a decade ago, if you recall, the Duke Blue Devils win the 2015 men's basketball title. That same fall, remember, the Carolina Panthers of the NFL, our country's most popular sport, went 15-1 with Cam Newton. And then by January of 2016, the Panthers were playing in the Super Bowl, 100+ million viewers. The very next year, 2017, Carolina wins the men's basketball title. So those are examples of, you got to go through us, so to speak, whether it's college or pro. And it hasn't always been the case, right? The Charlotte Hornets of the NBA have had a lot more down years than up years. Play-in game this year was progress for our NBA franchise here in North Carolina. But the Panthers at least made their first playoff appearance in almost a decade this past season. And you and I have seen, just in our time with the North Carolina Sports Network, we've gotten to host major golf championships in this state. You and I are celebrating the $10 million Big Rock Blue Marlin tournament off of the coast of Morehead City, North Carolina. The bottom line, though, is when we're in the mix, everybody has more fun. And at the pro level, with the Carolina Hurricanes winning it all for the second time in franchise history, as much as we all love the NFL, the Panthers have never won the Super Bowl. As much as we enjoy the NBA, it was the Knicks celebrating a title, and the Hornets are still waiting for their first title. We haven't had Major League Soccer for too long, but the Carolina Hurricanes are that wonderful example of how pro sports can kind of become an umbrella under which, whether you're a Duke fan for the college game or ECU or App State or Carolina or NC State, you can unite behind sometimes the Panthers, sometimes the Hurricanes, etc. So to see Rod Brindamore raise that Stanley Cup as a head coach, 20 years after raising that Stanley Cup as the team captain and, of course, playing superstar in 2006, that's as good as it gets. And here are the Tar Heels, one of the best baseball programs in college for many, many years. I think Mike Fox was maybe the best baseball coach in UNC history. He hands the baton to Scott Forbes. The Heels have basically had a smooth baton passing, just the way Coach K to John Shire worked well for Duke men's basketball. But just as John Shire doesn't have his first NCAA title yet, after Coach K had his 5, UNC baseball is now been to Omaha 13 times, counting this year. The other 12 times, there were varying degrees of success, but they were not able to kick down that door. And you know how this works as a longtime college administrator. It's one thing to be viewed as a respected program, which Carolina baseball has for probably our entire lifetimes. It's another thing to be viewed as a national championship program. And remember, UConn was up in men's basketball. UConn was always in the picture, always in the picture, always in the picture, but until the end of the 90s, they had not won a title. Well, now they have 6. And Florida basketball was interesting, had never won a title. Then Billy Donovan got them there, and now they have 3. Even Coach K. Remember, Duke went to Final Fours way before Coach K arrived, but the Blue Devils hadn't kicked the championship door down until 1991, and now they're there with 5. Carolina baseball has been knocking on the door, knocking on the door, knocking on the door, and here they are, not only in Omaha, but one of the final 2, and the favorites against the Oklahoma Sooners as we go into this best-of-3 matchup in Omaha.
When you look at this North Carolina team, for the folks who are just jumping on the bandwagon right now when they make it to the National Championship Series, what's been the key for Scott Forbes into getting this program to this level where it was back in the early 2000s? There were a lot of those Carolina-Oregon State games that I remember watching on television. But what about this resurgence of Carolina baseball under this great North Carolina guy in Coach Scott Forbes?
Well, you need pitching, you need fielding, and you need opportunistic hitting.
Right.
And I won't say that this is the only UNC baseball team that fits all 3 of those descriptions, but to get this far, to play this well, Carolina, Mike, has lost 3 baseball games since the end of April. That's a month and
They're like the Knicks.
And they lost, the ACC title game to Georgia Tech, which was a heck of a team. They lost that 1 game in the Super Regional to Southern Cal before winning the next 2 and advancing. And then they lost a regular season game very late in the regular season. So 3 losses over a month and a half. That shows how good they are. But when it comes to pitching, it is Jason DeCaro, the number 1 starter. It is Ryan Lynch, the number 2 starter. Those guys will be high Major League Baseball draft picks when the time comes, DeCaro being a junior, Lynch being a sophomore. They have 2 or 3 relievers that they believe in. And Kaeden Glauber is this freshman All-American, and the Heels have literally won every game he has pitched in. But they also have Jackson Rose, the young lefty, who has been phenomenal during this postseason. So he's been at his best late in his freshman season. Walker McDuffie has had some ups and downs here in the postseason, but the bespectacled right-hander has been a superstar at times for the Tar Heels when needed as well. We'll see if the Heels need more than those 5 guys that I mentioned to beat Oklahoma, but that's the pitching element. The fielding element, you're surprised when the Heels make an error. 2 of their transfers this year, their first baseman, Eric Paulson, was the Defensive Player of the Year at Stony Brook in his previous conference.
Right.
And Cooper Nicholson has been a good defensive third baseman for them. Jake Schaffner, a North Dakota State transfer, was the Defensive Player of the Year as a shortstop in his previous conference. Gavin Gallagher, the veteran for the Tar Heels who plays second base, just won the Gold Glove Award at the college level for the best defensive second baseman in all of college baseball. And they've had some, great play in the outfield as well. Owen Hull is just a phenomenal hitter and fielder that's roaming center field for the Tar Heels. So you add maybe not a deep pitching staff, but 5 guys they really believe in, rock solid defense for the most part. And then the opportunistic hitting, as a lifelong baseball player myself in my youth, I can tell you that can be the hardest to predict. But Owen Hall has been phenomenal. George Mason transfer, All-American caliber player. Gavin Gallagher has been phenomenal. Again, Mr. Clutch and a veteran for the Tar Heels, one of their returnees that Scott Forbes has been just getting the best of in his latter years. Eric Paulson, the big first baseman, has hit well here in the postseason. Carter French, the future doctor, sometimes comes off the bench, sometimes starts in the outfield. He's hitting 300 or better. Schaffner's a dangerous base runner, but also a good hitter. And I won't say the Heels have been great hitting 1 through 9, but with that pitching and defense, they haven't always needed to score a ton of runs. Remember what Jason DeCaro did with that incredible clutch complete game earlier in the postseason. That's as good as it gets. So those 3 elements, only a handful of teams in college baseball have confidence in all 3. Quality high-end pitching, reliable rock-solid defense, and then just enough opportunistic hitting. The Heels have that. I think they have more of it than even Oklahoma does. They're kind of surprise opponent in this best-of-3 final round. I think the scariest potential opponents for the Tar Heels have already lost. Teams like Georgia and Texas and other national seeds. Remember, seven of the last 8 NCAA champions have been top 8 seeds. Well, the Heels are a number 5 seed. Oklahoma is unseeded. So the odds makers believe the Tar Heels are favored, should be favored. I think the eyeball test says the Heels should be favored because they have more pitching than Oklahoma does. But you know how this goes. At this point, Oklahoma has earned its way there. They are hitting the cover off the baseball.
Yeah, they are.
They have some questionable pitching, but who knows? All it takes is one magical performance or a couple to shock the world. But the Heels are in as good position to win a national title in baseball as 20 years ago when they were in the final round, but they ended up coming 1 win short.
Hey, Wolfpack Nation. You already know that when we talk about the great traditions of NC State athletics, Amedio's Italian restaurant is right at the heart of it. Since 1963, it's been the go-to spot for generations of Pack fans. The walls tell the story, the food seals the deal, and every visit feels like part of the family. Whether it's pre-game pasta, post-game celebrations, or just a night out on Western Boulevard, Amedio's delivers every single time. Great people, great plates, and pure NC State pride. Stop by Amedio's, a true Wolfpack original.
What's the key? I mean, it's a best out of 3 series, but is that game 1? Is that a must win if you want to? And do you want your pitcher to be able to go deep? Because as you said, Oklahoma in their last 16 games, they've hit over 40 home runs. I mean, they are blasting it out. So if they get hot and Carolina has to go deep in the pen, that's bad news for the blue and white. But if Carolina gets a deep performance by their pitchers, it seems like it sets them up pretty well for their bats to deliver that first national championship back to Boschman.
I think you put your finger right on the correct button. Basically, Jason DeCaro, who has been all world for the Tar Heels, including in the postseason, if he needs to win game 1. What happens, Mike, there is no college baseball team that loves their top, 8 or 9 pitchers. It just doesn't work that way. In fact, even in this postseason, down to one key, they need Jason DeCaro to go deep, and they really need to win game 1. Oklahoma, of course, is saying some version of the same thing. If they get game 1, they believe they can beat the Tar Heels. It's not over for the loser of game 1, but you are truly in the driver's seat. And if you're Carolina, you're envisioning 6 or 7 from Jason DeCaro and then 2 or 3 from Kaeden Glauber. And if you win that, then you have Ryan Lynch ready to go in game 2. And you have arrested Jackson Rose, arrested Walker McDuffie, and other guys, if needed, to put the polish on that the clinching game.
When you look at the history of Carolina baseball, I go back to Walter Rabb. I remember when he was still the head coach of Carolina, and then Mike Roberts, who I worked with and you worked with as broadcasters there on the Tar Heel Sports Network, and then on to Mike Fox, who, lifted the program up to a different level. And now Scott Forbes, but it feels like to me, David, it feels like Scott Forbes might be the last of the Mohicans. He is the last of the old guard type of coaches at Carolina because everybody else is, right out of college, first coaching job, coming in for their last coaching job like Belichick or Malone somewhere in between that grouping for the Carolina basketball program. But Scott Forbes is a Carolina guy. Scott Forbes has had great success here in the bold North State at a variety of levels. It just seems like he's the Roy Williams of Carolina baseball, the feel-good guy that you want to root for him. Am I on base with that?
Yeah, and in particular, there's a great story. There's a long list of great stories unfolding in Omaha as we speak. One of them, by the way, unrelated to your question, is that a lot of the guys from that, remember those back-to-back teams under Mike Fox that made it all the way to Omaha and then all the way to the end, and then it got away? A lot of those players from 20 years ago are in Omaha as we speak to root on guys that they don't know. They're separated by 20 years. Maybe they've met one or more of the players, but they're there for the program. And I think of that story alongside another story that does go more directly to your question. Scott Forbes' dad is the man that Coach Forbes credits for sort of pushing him through the original door that made him a Tar Heel. Scott Forbes' first opportunity, I believe, was a part-time, lightly compensated or uncompensated position. But he would get to work for the legendary Mike Fox. He would get to work at a place that some call the University of National Champions. And I don't say that lightly. Just keep in mind, Carolina Athletics is responsible for more than 50 NCAA team titles. And that's not just in one or two sports. That's in 8 different sports. UNC baseball is trying to become the 9th UNC sport that has reached truly the top of the mountain. But Coach Forbes' dad is out there. There's been, of course, a lot of media publicity about all these angles that we're discussing. So he's excited, Coach Forbes is, that his dad is getting the credit for sort of inspiring Coach Forbes to hitch his wagon in an unconventional way to UNC and UNC baseball. Coach Forbes, of course, was also with Mike Fox, not for the entirety of Coach Fox's tenure, but the majority of it. And I believe one of the reasons that this group is responding so well.
The perfect Wolfpack pregame or postgame spot this season is Sammy's Tap and Grill in West Raleigh. Just minutes from NC State, Sammy's brings more than 65 TVs, a huge menu, 44 draft beers, and an atmosphere built for Wolfpack fans. Burgers, jumbo wings, cold drafts, and all the energy of the pack. Whether you're watching the kickoff, tip-off, face-off, or just gathering with friends, that's where you want to be. Swing by 2235 Avent Ferry Road, Raleigh, and make Sammy's Tap and Grill your Wolfpack game day headquarters. Sammy's, presenting partner of the This Was Then podcast and complete coverage of the NC State Wolfpack on the North Carolina Sports Network.
David, you're up in Nantucket. I'm back here in the bold North State, and we're getting ready for the Pineys, the North Carolina Sports Awards coming up later this summer. Man, as we've been looking through this, we've been, talking to people, getting nominations in for the different categories. But let's be honest. Our calendar year starts in August and goes through July, and that's when we have the Pineys every year. This year it might be a little bit later, but brother, this year is kind of stunk in football, and that's no disrespect to Duke, who won the ACC football championship, but there wasn't a lot of excitement around football season. We were talking about that mid-October. Basketball season, pretty good, but it wasn't the usual that we're used to here on Tobacco Road. But here in the last week, with the Stanley Cup championship, the second for the Carolina Hurricanes, and Rod the Bod and all the guys who have made it so great here on the North Carolina Sports Network to follow their success, and now potentially a College World Series championship. This one, came in like a lamb, but it's going out like a lion this 2025-26.
And what's fun about it, one of the many things that's fun about it, is that in our childhood, the great state of North Carolina was overwhelmingly college-oriented, right?
Yeah.
So that when Frank McGuire and the Tar Heels broke through in 1957, there were truly no top-level professional teams in the great state of North Carolina. Through Dean Smith's title at Carolina in 82, Jimmy V and the Cardiac Pack in 83, again in men's basketball, there were still no top-level pro teams. So, yeah, it was really, obviously the Hornets arrived in the late 80s. Both the Panthers and the Hurricanes arrived in the mid to late 90s. And here in the 21st century, I think our great state has become this wonderful blend of college and pro. Yeah. Where we've always had NASCAR at the pro level. We've always had golf and tennis and other things at the pro level. But the NFL is the most popular sport in our country. And we've only had it for, roughly 30 years now. The NHL is the 4th most popular sport in our country. And now we have 2 Stanley Cups separated by 20 years here in the bold North State, as you love to call it. And we haven't stopped winning national championships. I mean, baseball, for anyone wondering, when the college football playoff championship game happens, they might get 25 or 30 million viewers for that game, okay? When the NCAA men's basketball title game rolls around, depending on the year, it could be 15 million, could be 20 million, could be 25 million. The record would be a little higher than that. Women's basketball, that Caitlin Clark surge not long ago, got up to that 20 million range for its title game. Baseball would be next in that pecking order at the college level. Just as the pros goes NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball are kind of close to each other, and then the NHL is fourth. At the college level, it's football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and then baseball is fourth. Millions of people are watching these games in Omaha. And a lot of times for the championship game, it's 4 or 5 million people watching. So this is not small potatoes at the college level, what the Tar Heels are trying to do. Just as I've rolled my eyes at anyone who says it's only hockey. Yeah, it's only hockey. The National Hockey League is the 5th wealthiest sport in the history of the world. The National Hockey League. So everything is relative, of course, but there are a lot of eyeballs on this. There are a lot of people who care. And obviously, just as Coach K finally got Duke its first national title back in the early 1990s, you can be a good program for a long time. Carolina baseball has been respected because of Walter Rabb and all of his successors for our entire lifetime. I mean, UNC went to the College World Series in baseball twice before you and I were born. So that's how long ago they started this.
Green wasn't on that team, wasn't
it? I don't think so. It was 1960 was the first. 1966, I think, was the second. So the Heels have been knocking on this door for what is that, 60 to 70 years almost. And now they're not only in the final two, they're favored against Oklahoma. Again, I think you'd be wise to win game one. It's like dominoes. The dominoes fall nicely when you win game one. Your batters can relax a little bit. Your pitchers get some rest. It's the road less traveled to try to win a best of 3 if you drop the opener, especially if you're burning Jason DeCaro as your star starting pitcher. It's going to be fascinating to watch. There are some massive managerial decisions to be made. Those guys on the hill, I used to be told as a baseball pitcher, nothing happens until you let go of the ball. There's some pressure that comes with that. And Jason DeCaro, Ryan Lynch, the number 2 starter, Kaeden Glauber, who possibly makes it through an entire freshman season, where literally the Tar Heels record is undefeated in the games that Kaeden Glauber pitches. I've never heard of that before. He's pitched, 25 plus times, and the Heels are 25 plus and 0 in the games that he has entered. That's weird. That's crazy. That's maybe not unprecedented, but those are the guys, especially, and then Jackson Rose as well out of the bullpen. Walker McDuffie, we'll see. I think the Heels have it. I think they have the blend of the 3 things we discussed earlier. There are no guarantees in baseball, right? Like, you can be the better team and still lose. It happens. But this in my almost 40 years covering UNC baseball, including some of those where I was next to Mick Mixon in the broadcast booth in the early 1990s, this is at a minimal the best, as good a chance as the Heels have of winning it all. With all due respect to some other phenomenal players, phenomenal coaches, phenomenal teams. At the very end, you know the deal. The margins are very, very slim. But just as Rod Brindamore said, the Canes got not lucky. It starts with work and structure and effort, but it doesn't hurt to stay healthy, right? Rod said, hey, some of those other teams I thought we had were good enough to win it all, but we lost one of our key players or two down the stretch, and that might have been the difference between raising the Stanley Cup or not. So he says he doesn't want to call it luck, but there's that other element, and I think if you're the Heels, you have to be honest about it. You'd rather have avoided Georgia and Texas from the other side of the bracket. And sure enough, Oklahoma shocks that side of the bracket, beating 2 of the highest-ranked teams in the country. So now you're dealing with the Sooners, no disrespect, and I know the Tar Heels won't disrespect Oklahoma, but the truth serum answer to would you rather play, just like the Hurricanes ended up not having to face the Colorado Avalanche, who had the best record in the NHL during the regular season. The Avalanche had some injuries at the end, so they weren't built the same as the team that had the best record. those things beyond your control, when they go in your favor, that's when you start wondering if it's just your year. It was that year for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I think it's going to be that year for the North Carolina Tar Heels baseball squad.
What a bonus for all of us right here. A mid-June half hour of power with David Glenn. Go ahead and like, subscribe, put in your comments right here. Bacon and Baseball brought to us by NC Pork. This is going to be a lot of fun. David, enjoy Nantucket. Say hello to Coach Belichick up there. And there you guys going to go out and play some bocce ball later on. Maybe, get some, intel going for the football season. We're going to be Hey, it's only about 3 weeks until we're in Charlotte for the ACC football kickoff, so just a few more weeks to kind of decompress and hopefully enjoy another major championship coming back home to the bold North State. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Good to be with you, Mike.
This is the North Carolina Sports Network. From the high country to the Outer Banks, on courts, fields, and fairways, we tell the stories of the bold North State. Follow us on social media at the NC Sports Net. We're the exclusive home of The David Glenn Show, coach-driven analysis of football and basketball. A look at the past with This Was Then, Inside NIL with Court Vision, the North Carolina Sports Awards, aka the Pineys, and the Old North State Tailgate, where we are on the ground at North Carolina's top events. Our foundational partner is NC Pork, raising the bacon, raising the bar. Telling the stories of the bold North State. Experience matters. This is NCSN, the North Carolina Sports Network.